A lot of chicanery going on in the AFC North right now. And, you know, it's funny because for years, the bullies on the block have been the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And not to say that they're still not the bullies, but the Browns don't look like they're going away anytime soon. I believe in Joe Burrow, and we'll see what he looks like post-injury, but I believe in Joe Burrow, and I think they have talent on that Cincinnati Bengals roster. And I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers and their situation with Ben Roethlisberger and what their GM just came out and said. We'll talk about that here in a second. And I'm looking at the Baltimore Ravens and I'm saying, can you really win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson? A lot of questions, not a ton of answers right now. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 140th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got my guy, Ramon, here with me, looking to do some work today on this gorgeous Wednesday afternoon. It's crazy. It feels like the calm before the storm. We're supposed to get more snow this evening if everything goes according to plan. But it doesn't feel like a day where it's supposed to snow. It's sunny outside. Feels relatively mild. I'll be shocked if snow comes. But you know what? It's always when you don't expect it when you do get snow. It's crazy because you would think it has to be frigid outside. The temperatures have to be extremely cold. And that's never the case when it snows a lot of times. It's usually this confluence of warm air and cold air. And so it's the day when you're thinking, it's chilly outside, but it's not like super cold. That's the day it snows. When it's really cold outside, it rains. I never understand that, but that's not for me to understand. That's for the weatherman. That's for the meteorologist to understand. Anyway, I digress. Got a lot of things I want to get to on today's show. Nothing in particular really tickles my fancy other than one item, that being the Ben Roethlisberger situation in Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. As a matter of fact, we'll use that to power social media maneuvers. If you're out there and you have something you want to say, if it's pertinent, you know, if you want to turn this into a draft show, I may just skip over your question. I don't know. You know, if you got some questions in particular, though, fire them away. You know, I'll decide which ones make the most sense to answer and which ones don't. But I do, speaking of draft shows, perfect segue, do want to go ahead and tell you right now that I officially have the start for the Draft Prospects 101 series. It will begin next Wednesday. So go ahead, mark that on your calendars so you don't have to keep asking me, when are you going to start your draft coverage? Next Wednesday. Got it all under control now. Kind of got a game plan in my head as to how I want everything to go. And so next Wednesday, we will start Draft Prospects 101 live. That will be every Wednesday night, and we'll take a look at a different position each week. We'll talk about some things, and you'll kind of get a feel for how things are going to go as that show moves along. But every week, we will be live on Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. So that will start next week. Again, live, 8:30 p.m., Draft Prospects 101 live. So be on the lookout for that. Among other things. So, with that said, let's jump into the gem dropping session, shall we? Yeah, let's do that. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So, I talked about some AFC questions earlier on the show. And I'm going to use one to power social media maneuvers. If you're out there, you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive. We'll open up the show for you guys out there. And again, if you want to jump straight to the front of the line, you know how to do it. Super chats are the way to get that done. However, I want to start out with asking this question. And I kind of struggle with this because I'm a massive fan of Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens have a slew of issues if you ask me this offseason. And no one's really talking about this, but Orlando Brown, their massive tackle, who they drafted some 3 years ago, he wants out now. All right, he's going into the final year of his rookie contract. I believe this is the final year of his contract. I remember mocking him and talking about what a ridiculously sluggish athlete this guy was. He was like 350 something pounds, it seemed like, maybe 360 at the combine. He didn't test well. The tape wasn't poor. It wasn't great at Oklahoma. And thus, I'm looking at this guy and I'm saying, there's no way in hell this guy's going to survive in the NFL. They're going to eat his ass alive. They're probably going to have to kick him inside the guard. Well, just like Trent Brown, he figured it out, okay? Just like we're seeing with Mekhi Becton, who I said was the best tackle in last year's draft. He seemed to have figured it out. And there wasn't anything for Mekhi Becton to figure out. He was big. His arms are long. He's an athlete. There's nothing else to talk about. People are like, hey, he's going to eat his way out of the league. Okay, maybe that does happen. But you can't teach his length. You can't teach his athleticism. In that frame, Mekhi Becton is a problem. And he looked the part last year for the Jets. I think we may have overstated, or maybe understated is the right term to use, Orlando Brown's ability. And he wants to play left tackle. The worst thing that happened to the Ravens last year was losing Ronnie Stanley after signing him to that massive extension, because it opened the door for Orlando Brown to get a taste of something the Ravens never thought he would get a taste of in a Ravens uniform, playing a left tackle position. And he played it really well, and there was no drop off. And suddenly he's like, I don't want to play right tackle anymore. I played left tackle at Oklahoma. I'm a left tackle. I'm supposed to be playing left tackle. Enough of this shit. I want to play left tackle. I'm not going back to right tackle. So either you trade me or I'm not playing. We'll see what happens with that situation. Anyway, it's a separate situation, not one that I was looking to answer today and talk about. I want to talk about Lamar Jackson, because there's this debate out there. Can you win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson? And I thought I'd ask this question. We got nothing else going on. I thought it was a really interesting question. So I'm going to ask you guys, can you win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson? He's 1-3 in the offs in his career. We've talked about this already. Got the monkey off his back this year. He was 0-2 coming into the postseason this year. Won on the road at Tennessee. Lost the following week at Buffalo in a game that was very, very winnable. And it sparked another debate as to whether you can win with Lamar Jackson in a situation in which you have to throw the football. I'm a staunch supporter of Lamar Jackson. The guy does nothing but win in the regular season. I don't know what his regular season record is to this point. I think it's something like 36-12 or something like that. 34-12, something along those lines. Like, he's a big time winner in the regular season. And in the regular season, you can win with Lamar Jackson because every week you're not playing against the cream of the crop. It's not the creme de la creme. All right, you're going to get Cincinnati's on your schedule, and you're going to get the Jacksonville's on your schedule, and you're going to get the Giants and Washington and Dallas and some downtrodden teams during the course of a season that you're going to be able to take advantage of because you're just flat out better. And Lamar Jackson is the best athlete on the field. And they don't have a quarterback, a franchise guy on the other sideline that's going to help that team score 35 points. So you're going to be able to take advantage of some teams in the regular season. And Lamar Jackson is a guy right now at this point of his career that is a dynamic athlete playing quarterback. Still not the best from the pocket, although I think he has improved, but not to the point where you feel comfortable enough that you can win and win big when it matters most. So the question really is, can you win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson? If the answer is yes, there's nothing to talk about. When his contract is up, you re-sign him and we move forward. If there is any doubt, now we're into year 4 now. We're going into year 4 of Lamar Jackson. Keep that in mind. So we're getting pretty damn close to the Ravens having to make a decision. Do we want to re-up long-term with this guy? Or is he a glorified running back playing the quarterback position? You know how I feel about that statement. You know how I feel about that whole situation. And I mixed no words on this podcast when Bill Polian stated that Lamar Jackson is a running back essentially, or should do other drills, receiver drills and running back drills at the combine. But at some point, you're going to have to win games from the pocket in this league. And Lamar's been dynamic with his legs. And again, there are going to have to be plays made from the pocket at some point. We saw it in the Bills game to a lesser degree. It was windy as hell outside. We all know that. And, the situation wasn't ideal for throwing the football. That said, there were opportunities in that football game. There were missed field goals on both sides. But the game was 10-3. Ravens in striking distance. Got a wide open Hollywood Brown. Great play by Jerry Hughes. We've already talked about that. However, on the next snap, it's 3rd and goal from about the 8 or 9. And he throws a back-breaking pick six to Taron Johnson, who returns it 101 yards. And really, that was the ball game. 17-3. You go from potentially 10-10, no worse than 10-6, to now 17-3, and that would ultimately be your final score in that ball game. I think you can win with Lamar Jackson. I feel strongly about that, and I think he's going to get better as a passer. The question for me is, can the Ravens find the right mix of guys around him if they pay him big money? Because eventually, you're going to have to pay Lamar Jackson. You have to pay him massive amounts of money if you think you can win a chip with Lamar Jackson. If the answer is no, then maybe you franchise him, keep him for one more year. I mean, you just run him till the wheels fall off. Get as much, and I think Lamar is smart enough to understand what would be being done there if that were the case. Like, they're going to try to run me into the ground and then move on from me. Whatever the case may be, the Ravens have dedicated themselves to playing this brand of football to pretty much give themselves the best chance to win with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. And they've come up short every year in the postseason since Lamar has taken over as the team starter, starting in his rookie season, losing in wildcard weekend to the then San Diego Chargers. They follow that up the following year with a loss in the divisional round. Remember, the Ravens were the number 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. Might have been, matter of fact, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. And they lose to the Tennessee Titans in their very first game. And it wasn't even close. They got dominated in that game, 28-12. The following year, they go back to Tennessee, avenge that loss, get a little bit of a revenge. And that's an ice cold dish. Okay? That revenge is. Best served when it's cold-blooded. And that was some cold-blooded shit they did to the Titans. Marking up the Titans emblem and logo in the middle of the field. Yeah, it was some real cold-blooded, dirty Dick Dastardly shit. I loved it. Every second of it. But then they go on the road the following week. The Bills were there for the taking, and everyone expected, and I didn't feel this way in the moment, but when I look back on it, a lot of people thought the Ravens, including myself, I'm guilty, thought they were going to go on the road and beat the Buffalo Bills. And they didn't. And you could argue a big part of the reason why is because Lamar Jackson didn't get it done. The defense was exceptional. You hold that Buffalo Bills offense that was scoring damn near 40 on any and everybody that was showing up. You hold them to 17 points, and really 10 was, the defense was responsible for giving up because 7 of it was on a pick six thrown by Lamar Jackson. That's a game you're probably supposed to win. And they didn't win it. So I think there is a question there to be asked. I don't know if the Ravens feel like they can win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson or not. They were down in that Titans game for anyone that says, oh, can't win once you get behind with Lamar Jackson. They were down 10 in that game early on, and he brought them back. Now, it was a slow, methodical bring back. It wasn't down, 21-3 in the third quarter and Lamar Jackson starts throwing BBs all over the field. It wasn't one of those. It wasn't Patrick Mahomes down 24-0 to the Houston Texans early stages of the second quarter before going off on a barrage. But it was a comeback nonetheless. Something that a lot of people thought Lamar Jackson in the offs wasn't capable of. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to put that ball in your court. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. I'm interested to see how the Ravens go about surrounding him with talent if they do extend him out and give him the long-term contract that he deserves when it's time to pay him. Because we see what this is around the league and what you have to do to keep your franchise quarterback. And Lamar is one of the best in the league right now. He's a playmaker. And they're going to have to pay him. And after they pay him, how do they surround him with talent? I still don't know if they've done a good enough job of surrounding him with talent now. I think they got some stuff that they need to find more creative ways to use. I think Devin Duvernay can be a problem, other than just jet sweeps and, wide receiver screens and little quick hitters to get him the football. I think he can actually do some other things. Maybe they'll explore a little bit more of that next year. Didn't want to put too much on his plate as a rookie. That's fine. I don't know what happened with Miles Boykin and why he hasn't been better, but he's just meh right now. We're going into year 3 of Miles Boykin, and it doesn't feel like I've seen all that much growth out of him, in this Ravens offense at least. I think we're starting to scratch the surface on Hollywood Brown and what he can truly be. To me, he is a number 1 wide receiver in this league. But we really haven't seen it consistently in Baltimore. That could be Lamar, that could be the play calling, that could be a confluence of both. It could be a number of things. Lamar seems to have an infatuation with getting the football. And you know what I've realized is that mobile quarterbacks seem to have this infatuation with the tight end position. Well, for whatever reason. Maybe that's the guy that they see the quickest, they're right over the ball, whatever the case may be. Lamar seems to throw his best ball and seem his most comfortable when he's throwing the football to his tight ends. Mark Andrews is one of the best receiving tight ends in all of football. And I think there is some talent at that position. Nick Boyle and some of the other guys that they've had over the years at the tight end position. I think they do a really good job of stockpiling talent at the tight end position. That said, in the running back position, they keep talent on deck, which is why they could do what they did to Mark Ingram at the end of last season, pretty much saying, hey, dude, we're going to release you and we don't want you getting hurt. So, yeah, we're just going to make you inactive for the last 7 games of the season or so. We're going to roll with J.K. Dobbins. You understand, right? It's a business. You understand. He's like, yeah, I get it. So, anyway, there's talent, but I feel like there could be more talent around Lamar Jackson. I don't think there's nearly enough talent at receiver for whatever reason. It's not for a lack of trying. They've tried. And again, Devin Duvernay may turn out to be better than what we've seen already. He's shown flashes to be dynamic, but I just don't think he's been a big enough part of the offense. He's a rookie, so again, I'm not asking for him to come in and just tear shit up. But I know he can be a bigger part of their offense. But again, it's not for the lack of trying. I don't know if they've done a good enough job or not surrounding him with talent. We'll see. But I can tell you this much. They've done a great job of setting this offense up around his talents and putting him in positions to succeed. Now, have they put the right guys around him? That's another question for another day. However, I do think they've done a tremendous job of putting him in positions, particularly Lamar, to succeed. Now he's got to do the thing that we've seen these elite quarterbacks in the league do, and that's take the next step on his own. Be able to make things happen despite the play call. That's the next evolution of Lamar Jackson is, hey, on 3rd and 8, They give me this concept here. And where I normally like to go with the football is covered. But on the backside of this, I got a bang 8. And it's open. I got to hit it. Front side is where I want to go. It's covered. Go through my progressions. See that I got a backside bang 8 and I got to stick it there. Can he do that consistently from the pocket? Love Lamar off schedule. Love Lamar when shit breaks down. When you've got protection and it's 3rd and 7, can you make the right decision when it's not right in front of your face? Can he start to do that and make an accurate throw consistently? When the other team knows you've got to throw it and you got to have it and they're not allowing you to use your legs. I thought the Bills did a tremendous job of this mush rush. Just kind of like, nobody get up the field, nobody get out of your rush lanes. We're going to really crowd the line of scrimmage. If we need to blitz, we'll bring an extra defender, but we're going to make it hell for him to get out of here. He ran into a couple of sacks. He ran into some pressure, trying to escape, but he couldn't. Thought he kept some read options that he shouldn't have kept in that game. You can only run so many RPOs before the defense catches on. And if I'm playing the Ravens, I'll let you have some yards on the ground. Gus Edwards can average 5.5 and J.K. Dobbins can average 4.7. I'll let you have some. What I won't do is let Lamar Jackson hurt me. Because that's usually when shit gets out of hand. When Lamar gets involved, usually that's when you get into trouble. Make him beat you with his arm. Until he proves that he can do that, it's going to be tough on the Ravens. They can go 13-3 or 14-3 if they add that 17th game, which I think is coming this upcoming season. They can go 12-5. That's cool. What are they going to do when they get to the offs and you're not playing Jacksonville and you're not playing Cincinnati and you're not playing a team that you can handle? You're not playing Washington or the Giants or Dallas or Philadelphia. You're not playing Carolina this time. You're not playing the Jets. What do you do when the team across from you can score points and they've jumped on you early? Can Lamar bring you back? We've seen in 3 playoff games out of 4 tries, the answer is no. I don't think it's a definite no. But he's going to have to be better. And I know there are a lot of people out there that don't think he's any good or don't think he can win big games. I am one that is on the other side of the fence. I beg to differ. I think you can win with Lamar Jackson. And I think he's going to continue to improve. He hears all of the noise. He hears it. He knows what he has to do to get better. Now the question is, can he do it? And the Ravens have to help him. They've got to add more talent. For as dynamic as he is, there needs to be more guys out there that he can get the football to that can win. So we'll see. If Willie Snead, and this is no disrespect to Willie, but I've already told you guys this a long time ago. This is a Louie T-ism right here. Dropping a gem on your melon. This is the gem dropping session, so I'm dropping a gem on your melon. Anytime somebody uses the phrase, I don't mean any disrespect or no disrespect intended, and then that's followed by a conjunction, disrespect is going to follow. Let me repeat that one more time for you. Catch this gem I'm dropping on your melon. Okay? This Louie T-ism. Anytime someone says, no disrespect intended, or I don't mean any disrespect, and then a conjunction follows, like and, or but, however, disrespect is coming after that word. After that conjunction, disrespect, every word of it will be disrespect. So I don't mean to disrespect Willie Snead, but There it is. Willie Snead is no one's number 2 wide receiver in this league. And that's essentially what he was for the Baltimore Ravens last year and the year before that. Their second best wide receiver, not target. Not when you start adding in the tight ends. I'm just talking about wide receivers. If Willie Snead is your second best wide receiver target, you have a problem. And the Ravens have a problem at wide receiver. One that they can fix this offseason. Plenty of really top-notch wide receivers on the market. Go get you one. Go get you a Corey Davis. Go get you a Juju Smith-Schuster. That might be a little bit pricey. I'm not saying, I'm just saying he fits a Raven. He looks like a Raven. He smells like a Raven. Does all the dirty work. Physical, blocks in the run game. Catches everything. But there's plenty of those dudes available in free agency, like an Allen Robinson. Again, that might be a little bit pricey for you, man. You might need something on the lower tier, like a Nelson Aguilar or something. Look, there's plenty of stuff out there to be had. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, go do something. The Ravens have tried to go the cheap route, the draft route, and I get that. And that's usually a good route to take if you're having success. But you're a veteran team. You're ready to win. Not now, like right now. So I suggest you go out and do something the free agent route. That's what free agency is for. When you're right there, you're on the cusp, and you just need a little help, a little boost, a little push over the top. Free agency isn't for the team that stinks and think they're going to fast track their way to winning. No, you got to build through the draft. You supplement through free agency. I can't stress that enough. Well, the Ravens have built through the draft. They've done some really good things through the draft. Excellent job of drafting. We always credit and laud and praise the Ravens for how they draft. It's time to add a piece in free agency to put them over the top at the receiver position. This is the year to do it. If your team is in need of a wide receiver, and we're going to talk about free agency next week, this is the year to do it. So I'm going to state my position once more, and then we're going to move on. I think you can win with Lamar Jackson in the offs, and you can win a chip with Lamar Jackson. I do think that. A lot of people think that you can't, and that's fine. He's 1-3 in the postseason right now, so he deserves to be questioned. He's been spectacular in the regular season, but when the playoffs have come, he's come up short. He's been small. He's got a lot of time to change that narrative. Plenty of time. We'll see what happens with Lamar Jackson. But that's my question to you guys. Love to hear your answers on that. Can Lamar Jackson be a Super Bowl winning quarterback in this league? And if you're the Ravens, do you extend him? Or do you go in a different direction after that rookie deal is up? Fascinating stuff. We're not there yet. Ravens still got 2 years to figure this thing out. But I think I know what they're going to do, ultimately. So I'm going to move on to social media maneuvers. Before we do that, I want to ask you guys out there, if you are watching this podcast, please hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Music Play, or whatever the hell they call it now, subscribe there too. So when this podcast is released, it'll come straight to your phone or your mobile device or wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button. It's, of course, subscribe first. Turn on that notification bell again so you don't miss a thing. Because again, I can't tell you when these things are going to be live. I'd like to tell you every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3. But that I'd be lying to you. And I don't like lying to you guys. I told you, I'll never lie to you guys. I'll never steer you astray. Never. Not intentionally, at least, okay? As I've done before, when I'm wrong, I come up here and I offer up a 00. So, but that's unintentional. I never purposefully look to steer you in the wrong direction. Anyway, If you're out there and you want your comment to be read, here's the time to do it. Social media maneuvers. I'm opening the floor to you guys. This is where you guys get to take over the show. I want to start the conversation, and then we'll just let it go wherever the hell it goes. Okay, I'll let you guys take over and take it where you want to take it. I want to start with Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. So their GM, Kevin Colbert, had a little bit of a, conversation, and you hear these conversations on local radio stations, and you might hear a piece written in this column for this newspaper or for this website. And so you'll get gems and tidbits from here and there, or someone's podcast. You'll hear these tidbits coming out from general managers, coaches, things of that nature, ex-coaches. So we're in that season. Let me say this right now. I don't know if I've said it this year yet, but I say it every year, and I'm going to continue to say it because I firmly believe this to be the case. It's lying season, man. Okay, you know what that means, but just in case you don't, and you're new to the show, welcome. Welcome aboard. You won't be sorry. But if you're a veteran of the Louie T Network podcast, then you know what I'm about to say. But if you're not, listen up. I'm going to drop another gem on your melon. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. All right? A wise man passed it to me, and now I'm passing it to you. So let me say that again. It's lying season. So believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. So that said, it's lying season. It's draft season. A lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of people saying, I'm going to do this. This guy looks like this, just because they've got an agenda. So be careful what you run with. A lot of y'all are gullible, man. The first thing you see, you take it, you pick it up, and you run with it. And that's why they put this information out there for people like you that are gullible. Because they know you're going to pick it up and you're going to do their work for them. You're going to spread it like wildfire. That's what they want. So be careful out there, man. Be careful. Some sharks out there in the water, man. They vicious. Anyway, so Kevin Colbert had this to say regarding Ben Roethlisberger. He says, as we sit here today, Ben is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We told him, frankly, we have to look at this situation. Doesn't sound quite like Les Snead when he said, hey, Jared Goff's a member of the Rams for now. That's not apples to apples. Not quite like Steve Keim saying, hey, Josh Rosen, a member of the Arizona Cardinals for now. We like him a lot. That's not quite the same, but it's not that damn far off. They're cousins. They're not brothers. I told you that the comments made by Steve Keim and Les Snead about 3 weeks ago were identical twins. Okay, I said I heard this before, and I told you guys about 3 or 4 days in advance of that trade. Last time I heard a GM come out and make those comments, that guy was traded. That's not what I'm saying here, okay? Those two were identical twins. I could tell you some shit's going down. Don't know when, but some shit is going down. I don't think that's what this is. Now, what he's saying is, hey, look, don't count anything out, okay? Ben's going to have to work with us. If Ben doesn't want to work with us, we may have to go in a different direction. That's what that sounded like to me. If Ben's willing to come and sit down at the table, which I expect Ben to do, okay? If Ben's willing to sit down at the table, they discuss this and hash it out like men. Ben doesn't want to play anywhere else, and they don't want Ben playing anywhere else, okay? They want to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Ben Roethlisberger gives them the best opportunity to do so. So everyone's going to sit down, cooler heads will prevail, and they'll come out of this thing with Ben with a much lower number that makes the Steelers' cap situation a lot more friendly in a year in which the cap overall is going to go down. They're going to figure it out. However, what Kevin Colbert essentially is saying is, look, man, I got no guarantees for you in this thing, Okay? Ben's hanging on by a thread. This is probably his last year, which is fine by us. We're going to probably do something at quarterback this year. Don't be surprised if we make a move. And no, if anything else, I would take more of this from that statement than anything else. Not that Ben's going to get traded or released or anything like that. And all those things could happen. Highly unlikely, more, especially not the traded piece. You know, no one's trading for a $41 million cap hit, essentially. However, I think the Steelers are going to make a power move for a quarterback this year. And the one thing we've seen in the past, the Steelers aren't scared to make a move. If they believe in a guy or they see something they want, they go get it. Whether it be Minkah Fitzpatrick and having to give up a 1 to go and get him from the Dolphins, or to go up and get the linebacker a couple of years ago in the draft. I think they moved from like 21 or 20 to 10 to get Devin Bush. Like, they're not afraid. If they got to do it, they'll do it. And if they see one of these quarterbacks and they say, hey, this guy fits what we want to do in Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be shocked if, again, and I think I've used this, example like 20 times already. It's the easiest one to use. So it's low-hanging fruit, and I continue to pick it off the tree. So shoot me. But let's say Trey Lance, guy with the least amount of tape, the guy that just seems the most raw, needs more time of all the quarterbacks, the one guy that you look at and say, he's definitely not ready to play right away. And we say that all the time. We said the same shit about Justin Herbert. Look what he did when he got his opportunity in the second week of the season and didn't look back. We say this all the time. We don't know. We think we know who's ready and who's not. We generally don't have any idea. But Trey Lance, if there were ever a time that you looked at a prospect and said, he's not ready to play right away, he needs to sit and learn for a year. He needs some more seasoning. Okay, he's a little bland right now. He could use some seasoning. It'd be Trey Lance. And that seasoning alone could see him fall in the draft. Now, again, I don't see him getting past Carolina at 8. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me that Carolina would pass with Teddy Bridgewater. If they don't do anything with Bridgewater, if they're not able to get their hands on Deshaun Watson, it just doesn't make any sense to me that they would pass on an opportunity to get a guy like Trey Lance that can sit behind Teddy Bridgewater for 1 year and then go in there and do work. It just doesn't make. But let's just go with the assumption. I know it's highly unlikely that the fourth quarterback gets past 8. Highly unlikely. But just let's go with that premise that somehow one of the 4, preferably Trey Lance or Justin Fields, it doesn't matter. They're interchangeable at this point. I think it's more likely Trey Lance than it is Justin Fields. Gets past 8, and he just finds his way to 11 somehow. And there are the Steelers saying, you know what? We're going to go ahead and make the call, pick up the phone, and we're going to go get this guy. Because we got Ben for 1 more year. This guy's going to be ready. After that, we should be ready to rock and roll. Makes a ton of sense to me. I think they're more likely to do that than anything crazy with Ben Roethlisberger. That's just my opinion. I don't think Ben's going anywhere unless Ben plays hardball. Then the Steelers are put in a position where they've got to make a tough decision. Nobody likes to have to make TDs, man. Don't put me in that position where I got to make a TD. But when TDs have to be made, usually the players end up on the short end of the stick. Just remember this. Remember that I told you this. Okay? Remember that I told you this. I'm in a gem dropping mood today. So I hope your melon is open for these gems that I am just dropping on y'all today. So remember what I just told you. All right? When a team approaches a player, and you should know this already. I shouldn't be dropping a gem on your melon, but just in case you don't, now you know. When a team approaches a player with a high cap number, and they ask that player to restructure, it means they are willing to release that player if he says no. Let me repeat that again for those of you in the back that are hard of hearing. When a team approaches a player with a high cap number, or one that's a little higher than they would like to entertain in the upcoming season, and ask them to restructure, it means that team is willing to release that player if said player says no. So understand how that works. Colbert, in his statement, clearly tells you, we told him frankly, we have to take a look at this situation. He's telling you, essentially what he's saying, we got to restructure. Without saying it, he's saying it. We have to restructure this. We cannot go on like this. Something has to be done. And if they're going to go to Ben and say, we got to restructure, what happens if Ben says, no, I'd like to make $41 million this year? Then they have to be able to say to themselves, we knew this was a possibility. Now we have to take action. I mean, it's still a massive cap hit. I think it's like $23 or $24 million, but it's not 41. Okay? It's not 41. Still a lot of dead cap, but it's not the same thing. They don't want to do that. But if Ben says, nope, not going to do it. Sorry. Or the numbers they have in mind, Ben's like, I was thinking of like maybe $7 or $8 million more. Can we kind of somewhere meet in the middle? And they're like, nah. Not after you threw 20 interceptions in the AFC divisional round game or a wild card game. Sorry. Nah. I was thinking right around where we're proposing. What do you think? Now, we could put some incentives and bonuses in there, and if we win 13 games and you win 2 playoff games, yeah, you can get that money back. We'll see what happens. That's the way I look at this thing. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to some comments, man. I've said enough. Ali Side. Thank you for the comment. Ali Side writes, Lou, unrelated, but I guess Wentz ain't getting traded, huh? I think he is going to get traded. I think the Eagles are holding out hope that they're going to get a 1, and I don't think it's coming. Like, the Colts haven't budged. Props to the Bears for not doing something stupid and overreacting and giving in to the Eagles' demands. They're going to have to take what's on the table. And right now, it sounds like the highest bidder is the Indianapolis Colts, sitting right now at 2-2s. And if the Eagles aren't fine with that, they may have to eat it. This is the thing. Carson Wentz, I don't know if you guys read the article in the Philadelphia Inquirer, but Carson Wentz is like RG3 2.0. That's the sense. Remember that article out of the Philly Voice like 2 years ago? And I remember talking about it on this podcast. It might have been a year and a half ago, whatever it was. And the guy got crucified for it. You know, players started coming out and saying that this was bullshit and this, that, and the third. And none of this stuff was substantiated. I said, man, this sounds like, and the only thing that people kept saying is too many anonymous sources. Well, what do you want the dude to do? Name active players that gave him this intel? He can't do that. So everybody just dismissed it. Well, anybody could write an article and just say unnamed sources, you know, and cite a bunch of random quotes from people that they're hiding behind. Hey, look, man, that's a part of journalism. As a good journalist, you never reveal your sources. You just don't. Okay? So I believed that about 85% of what was said in that Philly Voice article some years back was accurate on Carson Wentz, and we're hearing that. I talked about what the ex-Eagle safety, shucks, what is his damn name? Jenkins had to say. I told you what he said about the coddling of Carson Wentz and him not having to deal with the consequences of bad play like everybody else in the locker room. They need to move on from Carson Wentz is what it sounds like. He sounds like he's a bit of a cancer in that locker room. We'll see what happens. It's hard to really say. I think he's going to get traded. I remember, I was the guy that was adamant that he wasn't going to be traded. I think they want to trade him, and I think they're holding out hope that someone's going to give them a little bit more than what they're being offered right now, and that's why he hasn't been traded. But they may ultimately have to, settle for what's being offered. And I think that's what the Colts and GM Chris Ballard are banking on, is that this market for Carson Wentz isn't going to be as robust as they thought. They thought they could drum up enough interest, talk about all these teams that were interested, and they thought they could push the price up. Well, guess what? They said, Chris Ballard showed up and said, you trying to get 16.5 for this pack right here, for this brick. I'm only going to pay you 13.5 for this. And the Eagles are like, well, you don't want my consignment then. Fine. Go find yourself somebody else to sell to. But if you serious, I'll be here. The offer still stands, 13.5. Holla at your boy. And they walked away. They're going to have to go out there and see if they can find someone that's willing to pay 16.5. If not, they're going to have to come back to the Colts and say, hey, man, think I can still get that deal for that 13.5 he was talking about? Hey, as I've always said, make sure you got an umbrella. Wise man once told me, make sure you got an umbrella. Don't want to catch a break. Gregory Lightbody. You think Washington should go after Quan Alexander or Jalen Smith if both are cut? I'm not sure how I feel about either one. Both are extremely athletic, but Quan Alexander was traded by the Tampa Bay, I want to say it was the Buccaneers, let him go, if I'm not mistaken, and he signed with San Francisco. A year and a half into that deal, San Francisco was ready to trade him, and then he got injured. So they had to wait. Then they traded him to New Orleans, and he got injured again. I don't know if I want any parts of Quan Alexander. And Jalen Smith, I'd have to watch film on him because I've heard a lot of Cowboys fans talking cold, hard cash about him. But I know this guy's a hell of an athlete. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I'd be honest with you. I'd have to watch film on him. I know I don't want any parts of Quan Alexander. I do know that. Rich says, I'm going to give you an excuse to have fun, Lou, and get you one free Grego and heavens to Muggletron and any other slogans you have for players. Love it, man. Keep it up. I think Washington football team is real close. I don't know what your definition of real close is. Are you Bruce Allen now? I don't know. I'm just kidding. But I don't think we're that close. I think we're close to being really competitive. I don't think we're close to being a Super Bowl team. Again, that's where you got to kind of make sure you clearly state what close means. You have to define what close really means. Gregory Lightbody says, Jalen Smith would be good with Del Rio. Remember how good he was with Chris Richard. Yeah, I thought the defense was trash last year in the way it was coached up. I already said that Mike Nolan is a clown as a defensive coordinator. They figured that out. I think he'll be much better this year. What we've noticed with the new defensive coordinator, the ex-Falcons head coach, Dan Quinn, is that he gets the most out of his backers. You say what you want about the other guys on the defense, but every year in Atlanta, we was like, man, they got some stuff at linebacker. He always got good production out of linebackers if they could run. Jalen Smith can run, so we'll see what happens there. Captain Spartan 04 says, got a lot to talk about. Hopefully we can get this all out. First, he says, I think about it. I don't want Najee Harris. Want to build the line or get linebackers Xavier and Collins. Do like Najee, though. Understand that. You might have more pressing needs that you have to address. And I think Villanueva is a free agent this year. And again, he's got to be getting up there in age, too. So a lot of questions. Obviously, Pouncey just retired. So a lot of questions on that offensive line. You probably do need to start there if you are the Steelers. Rich says, I don't like any quarterbacks from this draft in the first round besides the top 4 guys. I'll take Sam Darnold for 2, and I'll give up a lot for Deshaun Not a Mariota guy. Tell me why you like him in Washington. I just think there's some untapped potential. I think there's a second act to Marcus Mariota that looks a lot like the Ryan Tannehill second act in Tennessee. You can win with that kind of a quarterback in this league. Everybody wants to make this big stink about how you got to have an elite quarterback. You saw the playoffs. You saw the Final Four quarterbacks left. It was Brady. It was Mahomes. It was Rodgers. It was Allen. 3 of those 4 guys are going to be in the top, 4 for MVP voting this year. You got to have an elite quarterback. And to that I say, well, it was just 3 years ago, maybe 4. It's 2017 that we looked up in the postseason. And at the end, it was Brady. It was Blake Bortles. It was Case Keenum. And it was Nicholas Foles. Are any of those guys elite outside of Tom Brady? I'm asking for a friend. What I'm essentially saying is if you put a stellar defense with a Marcus Mariota type, if his second act looks like Ryan Tannehill, and I think they are very comparable, which is why the Titans went out and got Tannehill, because his game looked very similar to Marcus Mariota. I think there's something there with Mariota. You're surrounded with talent on offense. You give him an elite defense. And look, there's a recipe and a formula to win in this league. You don't have to have the elite quarterback. If you can get it, that's the route you take. Everyone's looking for a Deshaun Watson, a Russell Wilson, a Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, that's what you want. You know how easy it is to get that done? Not very, okay? If it were, everyone would have an elite quarterback. And there wouldn't be the Mitchell Trubiskys and the Blake Bortles of the world and the Dwayne Haskins. It wouldn't be a bunch of those guys that you just get wrong in the first round. And the Paxton Lynches. I could go on and on with failed first round draft picks at the quarterback position. Because there's a laundry list and a cemetery full of them. They're hard to find. But if you can find a guy that's above average, I've already said this, and I think Mariota can be that. He's not that right now. But I think you put enough talent around him, he can stay healthy, he's got athleticism, he's got a good arm. I think you can win with Marcus Mariota. And with what we're building, we don't need much. We just need an upgrade at quarterback, at receiver, at tight end. I think we could be fine along the offensive line. We still got a bunch of stuff that we just don't even know about, like a Sadiq Charles. We're not even sure about where he fits into the equation, if he fits at all. If you told me I had to run it back with the 5 that finished up the season, I said, okay, let's do it. I'm not afraid my offensive line wasn't bad. So, I like Mariota. I like Mariota. Captain Spartan 04 says, Ben probably getting the James Conner treatment this year. Great story and thankful for everything he's done, but don't know how much he's going to win games for us anymore. Yes, I doubt him. This is it for Ben. I think we all have acknowledged that. The Steelers have acknowledged that. I think Ben is acknowledging that this is it. This is it. So at this point, how do we do this in a way that it's beneficial for everybody involved? How can we do this to where we can still build and be in a good position once you're gone? And how can you give us enough flexibility that in your final year, we're still putting a team on the field capable of hoisting a Lombardi? This needs to be a meeting of the minds, and they need to come out of that meeting with a plan that's going to help the Steelers be able to move into the future without mortgaging the present. So I think that everyone feels kind of the same about Ben at this point. Gregory Lightbody says, this should be a fun offseason. Lots of good players will be cut because of cap casualties. For example, Von Miller. The Broncos aren't cutting Von Miller. It sounds fun. Like you said, it's a fun offseason. That's fun to talk about. I like to deal in reality. I could come back here a month and a half from now, and I'm eating crow and I'm offering up a double O. But they're not cutting Von Miller. A healthy Von Miller is a dangerous Von Miller. Captain Spartan 04 says, for Steelers coaches hired, wasn't thrilled. Matt Canada just accused. You called all of this stuff, though. You told us before it happened that this guy was going to get promoted. This guy was going to probably get promoted. Like, you told us Matt Canada was going to be your new offensive coordinator. You told us this, so you already knew. You said, should have got Pep Hamilton. The new DB coach hasn't stayed somewhere more than 2 years. Man on new quarterbacks coach and tight end coach. We'll see how it goes. See how it goes. Captain Spartan 04 says, Matt Canada is just a QB coach. Pep Hamilton should have gotten the OC job. Yeah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. You know, Pep Hamilton hasn't been able to keep jobs for very long. Maybe it's just because the guy that hires him usually gets fired, but he's been a guy that's moved around quite a bit as well when you start, referencing a guy like Pep Hamilton. But he's worked with some really good quarterbacks too. So anyway, I digress. Captain Spartan also says, also the O-line coach is confusing. Bunch of former players say he is good, but wanted Doug Marrone or Texas A&M line coach. Well, players know best. So if former players are saying, hey, no, this dude can coach, you should take heed to that. JP says, I'm personally in favor of Washington either moving to 7 for Trey Lance or staying at 19 and taking Mac Jones. Either way, I want my young QB. If they don't do anything in free agency, that could be the case. That could be the case. If they want Mac Jones, he'll be available at 19. You'll find out a lot about how they feel about the quarterback position. If they don't make a move to get Mariota, or, they don't go all in on Watson or whatever the case may be. If they, don't come away with a veteran and they're just sitting there with a decision to be made on Alex Smith and Kyle Allen and Taylor Heineke, and they don't take Mac Jones at 19, and that means they didn't love Mac Jones because you're not getting him at 51. If you want him in the second round, you'll then have to package up your second and probably one of your thirds to get him in the second round, to get up somewhere in the 30s, maybe the low 40s. But you're not getting him at 51. So you'll find out a lot about how they feel about this crop of quarterbacks, specifically Mac Jones, if they don't move and they have him on the board at the time of their selection at 19 and don't take him. JP says, this is definitely the year to get a wide receiver in free agency, and I think Washington will go all out for Allen Robinson, the guy I personally want. Again, what you want and what's going to happen, probably two totally different things. Again, I hear a lot of Washington fans throwing out Allen Robinson, and I know JP Finley is doing a great job of really throwing coals on that fire. Talking about going all in this offseason. I don't see it happening, man. I don't. Because Allen Robinson has a choice. And again, if all things are equal, and maybe they're not, maybe Washington's deal is 20% above market value and what anybody else is willing to offer him, and he wants that deal. But more likely than not, those deals are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of one another. Maybe a couple more million being left on the table if he goes elsewhere other than Washington, but it's not going to be that much more left on the table. That's when you start considering, where can I win and what quarterback am I playing with? And when I look at the Washington situation, if I'm a guy like Allen Robinson, I've dealt with Blake Bortles, I've dealt with Mitchell Trubisky, I've dealt with Nick Foles. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go down that road again. I need a real quarterback throwing me the football. A guy that I can depend on. So I just don't see Washington being somewhere he wants to end up. Now, again, if the money is just ridiculous, maybe it's something for him to consider. But I truly believe he wants to go somewhere where he'll have a nice mixture of getting paid and some consistency at the quarterback position. Got a super chat from Calvin Krim. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man Calvin Krim writes, "Hey Lou, which players, particularly wide receivers, since we've gone over them, do you believe are at risk of being cut or traded? Should we go after them?" Honestly speaking, I don't think you're going to see a big market for any receivers getting traded. You know, now there's the sign and trade possibility for a guy like Allen Robinson or Juju Smith-Schuster, but that's rare in the NFL. You know, it's rare. Generally, if a guy is a free agent and the team that he's currently on doesn't make a hard push to keep him, he's going to test free agency and ultimately get paid elsewhere. You don't see a ton of sign and trades in the NFL. You know, it doesn't happen very often because there's really no benefit to the team that's going to sign that player. You're giving up draft capital and you're going to have to sign this guy to a massive deal. It doesn't make any sense. This isn't the NBA. So I don't see too many guys getting traded, but and I wouldn't use the word cut because there are plenty of free agents, a plethora of them. We've gone over them. I've gone through different tiers of receivers, and we'll do this again next week on the pod. You know, when we start really diving into free agency next week. There's plenty of receivers out there that are going to be intriguing and could potentially find new homes and greater roles too. You know, when you look at some of these players that were deemed number 3 or number 4 options and they've performed or exceeded expectations, they're going to get number 2 money. Some of these guys that have been number 2s might get number 1 money. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this kind of shakes out over the next, month and how teams position themselves to be in a position to sign some of these players that will be available. But again, just quickly, cream of the crop: Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Will Fuller. Those are my cream of the crop wide receiver free agents. The next tier down: Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis, Sammy Watkins, Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar. There are so many receivers available. If you can't get you one out of this group, and there are plenty of other names that I will present to you next week that are going to be back of the store, clearance items. You don't have to spend right away at the front of the store with the big flashy sign that's going to cost you an arm and a leg. You can go to the back of the store. They were a last season model that they're trying to get rid of. They've got new stock that they want to put out on the floor, so they got to get rid of this old stuff, and they're discounting the prices. You can go to the back of the store and get you one of those Tim Patricks. Not going to cost you a bunch, but he can ball, man. You can go back there and get you a Rashard Higgins. It's going to be some stuff available, man. A Zach Pascal. It's going to be some stuff in the back of the store. It's not flashy. Might be a size too big. Maybe there's a piece of thread that if you pull, you might have a hole in your shirt. But you could find a gem back there. You got to sort through the rack, though. Don't just pick up the first thing you see. Oh, man, they only want $7 for this? Take your time. Sort through the rack. Find a diamond in the rough. They only want $6.5 million for 3 years. So $18 million for 3 years for this? This could be interesting. They only want 2 for 14 for this? I'll try my hand at that. Let me get some of that John Ross. Again, we'll see. We'll talk about that next week, though. Let's see. Take a few more comments and then we will move on. Captain Spartan says, last Steelers thing. For free agents, I hope we retain Sutton, Wormley, and Juju. Hopefully, Al, Bud Dupree, and Mike Hilton get highest paid at position somewhere else. Connor paid too. Connor, I don't see anybody tripping over themselves to sign James Conner, honestly. But Bud Dupree, it sucks he got injured because he was going to make some real money. I still think somebody's going to be highly interested in him, but it's got to be on a prove-it type of deal. I can't see somebody committing, a 5-year, $95 million deal to Bud Dupree after him tearing his knee up. I don't see that happening. Gregory Lightbody says, you heard that NFL analysts don't believe Terry McLaurin is a number one wide receiver. They're entitled to that opinion. He's not a slam dunk number one in some people's eyes, and that's okay. He doesn't have to be. If they find another quality receiver next to him, they'll see the true potential of Terry McLaurin. Right now, he's not capable of taking over a game. That's what you want a number one receiver to do. And he's not doing that yet. But I don't think it's through any fault of his own. Get him a real quarterback, and I guarantee you those numbers look slightly different. And I bet you some opinions of some of these so-called analysts might change. But again, I won't kill anybody that doesn't feel like McLaurin's a number. It doesn't feel like he's a number one. That's their opinion. And they may not be wrong. He may be one of the best number twos in the league. I disagree with that. I think he's a number one. But again, that's why we have opinions. Not all of them always align with one another, and that's okay. John Perez says, you think the Falcons will draft a quarterback? I have Fields mocked to Atlanta at 4. Sounds like the most likely outcome is them getting a quarterback. I mean, they don't plan on being this high in the draft again. So unless you plan on trading up, you're never going to be this high again. If you're the Falcons, you got to take advantage of this. And Fields is the guy. He's a homegrown product from Georgia. It makes a ton of sense. That shouldn't have anything to do with anything. And it probably doesn't. But if I had to guess, I'd say he'd probably be the guy. We'll see. Makes a lot of sense to me. Captain Spartan says, draft crushes this year. I got multiple. Rashawn Slater, that's the tackle out of Northwestern. Samuel Cosme, that's the tackle out of Texas. Najee Harris, we know, running back out of Alabama. Xavier Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa. And then the one I've been spying on since freshman, Creed Humphrey, that is the center out of Oklahoma. He's really good. I actually wanted him to come out last year because I had my eye on him too. Anyway, JP says, after Micah Parsons, who are the linebacker names Washington should be taking a strong look at? There are a number of guys that are going to go potentially in the first round. Like, obviously, Xavier Collins is a guy that name's come up a bunch. Jabril Cox out of LSU is another name that a lot of people feel like it could easily be the second linebacker taken in this draft, not Xavier Collins. I told you that in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0 that he didn't have Xavier Collins in the first round. He had two backers going in the first round. Obviously, Michael Parsons in the top 10. I think he ended up going to like Detroit at 7. And then he had Jabril Cox going, I want to say 31st overall, maybe 30th, somewhere in that vicinity. So anyway, they're going to be a bunch of, guys that as we get through this process, I'll shine the light on them. But we'll see what happens. Captain Spartan 04 says, I guess one more Steelers thing since you're bringing it up. I only see us targeting quarterbacks. He said, only quarterbacks I see us targeting are Jacoby Brissett, knows Matt Canada, and our running backs coach, and Mac Jones. Don't know. He feels like Steeler-like. I felt the same way about Mac Jones. He kind of feels Steelerish to me, But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Jacoby Brissett, I'm not interested at all. If you want him, he's all yours. Good luck. JP says, would you trade up for Parsons if you were Washington? If you thought that he was that dude? Yeah, why not? I got no problems with them trading up to get anybody. If they identify someone as that guy, go get him. Go get him. Captain Spartan 04 says, from Monday's pod, these quarterbacks need to decide if they want to be paid or a Super Bowl team built around them. Can't complain about your team when you're taking 35 plus million. Almost impossible to do both. I mean, I understand that premise, but it's not that player's job to decide what the team does around them. It's just his job to get the most money that he can to maximize his value. Now, you know, people will point to Tom Brady and say, well, he took less for years in Tampa Bay or New England. And there is some validity to that. If I'm making, and this is the thing, you can't make all the money. If I'm killing it off the field in endorsements, like Brady has been, like Dak Prescott is doing in Dallas, you know, like Russell Wilson is doing. If I'm killing it off the field in endorsements, Patrick Mahomes is killing it now. I don't have to make the most money. That's why Mahomes, you know, that deal looks great because you see $500 million. Mahomes essentially cut the Chiefs a break. That's a great deal for the Chiefs long term. Right now, it's not. But as the years pass on that deal, it's going to age and it's not going to age well, and it's going to benefit Kansas City. So they'll be able to hold on to the Tyreek Hills of the world. They'll be able to hold on to some of the defensive guys and some of the offensive guys that they'll get in the draft, like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire if he's playing exceptional football and they want to hold on to him because he's a Swiss Army knife. They'll be able to do that because he's making money off the field. But if I'm not one of those guys, it's not my job to worry about the team you put around me. That's your job. That's why they pay you the big bucks as a GM, or you as a pro personnel scout, or you as the head of college scouting. That's your job to find guys on young guys on cheap, affordable contracts, and the occasional veteran that you pay and spend on in free agency to bring in here and make us good. My job is to make sure that I'm getting the most out of my NFL career. And I'll never fault a guy for doing that. Figure it out. That's why they pay you the big bucks. I got to get mine while it's there to be got. Because when you're done with me, you're going to ball me up and you're going to throw me away. So I better get it while it's there to be got. So I hear you, but at the same time, not my problem if I'm a quarterback. Not my problem. Figure it out. Omega says Jabril Cox is the linebacker that Washington is missing in their big nickel defense. He's the missing piece. We'll see. Again, I mean, it's so early right now to be able to make declarations, definitive declarations. We'll see. You know, the Bolton kid from Missouri is another name that continues to pop up. I haven't watched any of these guys, so I can't tell you about any. I'm knee deep in the quarterbacks right now. I am knee deep in the quarterbacks. As I get past the quarterbacks, that's when things will go a lot faster. The quarterbacks are always so painstakingly tedious because you got to watch every throw. You got to see what that guy was seeing. You got to think like that guy was thinking, like, hey, why in the hell did he do that? That wasn't a good decision. Like, the quarterback position requires so much attention to the finer details. Once you get past them, all right, I can hit the ground running. I can get through a bunch of prospects in no time. But, you know, the quarterback position is the one that takes up so much time, and that's where I am right now. My man Kevin, the PRF, says, what's your prediction for Dak? First day extension, dragged out over the summer, or franchise tag signing? Honestly, obviously Dallas wants the long-term deal to be reached. If they can't, they're going to slap the franchise tag on him begrudgingly, but they're going to have to. If I'm Dak, I'm not signing that thing until I'm good and ready. And that probably for Dak isn't until first day of camp. Because let's be honest with ourselves. Because I think the deadline for Dak to get a deal done on a franchise tag is like July 15th. It's always the middle of July. It's usually like July 15th, 16th, something like that. So if the deal isn't done, it's by the first day of camp. Obviously, it's not getting done. That window is already closed. So if I'm Dak, I don't want to be at OTAs. I don't want to be required to show up for any of these mini camps. I don't want to be anywhere that I don't want to be. In the way that you allow yourself to not have to be at any of those things is to not sign the franchise tag till you're good and ready to show up. So for me, I'm pretty sure that they're going to franchise tag him if they can't work out a long-term deal. And if that, in fact, is done, Dak won't sign it until camp time. I don't see this thing lingering into the season, though, because the Cowboys would have to pay an inordinate amount of money. And Dak's like, I'm cool with collecting that check or those checks. You know, Kirk Cousins already laid out the blueprint for anybody that wants to win. Kirk Cousins has made way more money than anybody with his talent and skill set should have made at this point of their careers. But they empowered him to be in that position, and he took advantage. Dak's going to do the exact same thing, and I do not blame him. Captain Spartan says, I know it will all figure itself out, but how all of these quarterbacks going to find new homes? You got Kirk, Jimmy, Darnold, Wentz, Watson, Cam, Mitch, Mariota, and like 6 incoming rookie quarterbacks. Well, not all 6 of those incoming rookie quarterbacks are ready to start right away. You need somebody to start in front of that guy. Plus, when you name all of these quarterbacks, 4 or 5 of them aren't going anywhere. Kirk isn't going anywhere in Minnesota. Jimmy, I don't know if the 49ers are. I told you, you can't quit your job unless you have another one. You can't move on from a quarterback unless you got a guy to replace him. They may not have anybody to replace him in San Francisco. Sam Darnold, I think he is going to find a new home. Wentz, I think he is going to find a new home. Watson, I don't think is going anywhere. I've said that all along. I'm going to stick to that. Cam is done, and I don't see why anybody would be willing to give him an opportunity to start now. I already said this. If Cam is willing to swallow his pride and become a backup, if I'm Baltimore, that's the guy I'm hitting up. Mitchell Trubisky, again, he's like Marcus Mariota. If he's signing somewhere, it's a 2-year deal to be somebody's backup, and maybe he'll get a new lease on life by getting a couple of starts and showing, hey, I can still play, and then he'll get another chance. He's in that Mitchell Trubisky. He's in that Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill territory where you got to go back somebody up and prove you deserve another shot. And Mariota can get another opportunity. We'll see what happens. There's plenty of space. Remember, there's always space in this league for quarterbacks. Always. Talked about that already. Let's see. Kevin the PR says, since you're going through quarterbacks, are you zeroing in on a that's my guy this year? I don't know. This is the thing. When you get to quarterbacks, there are so many different varieties. What's your flavor? Generally speaking, the guys that are going to go at the top of the draft are going at the top of the draft for a reason. They're usually the best of the best. Every year, you're right, I do have a guy, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to emerge from my quarterback film study with a guy that I'm banging the table for, the guy that I'm willing to go to each ends of the earth and scream and declare that this is the guy you want. That guy may ultimately be Trevor Lawrence. Well, that's not saying much. Everybody else is going to be saying the same thing. 1 year was Josh Allen when everybody else was looking at Sam Darnold, and I was like, it's Josh Allen, I'm telling you. But I've been wrong. I still haven't given up on Drew Lock. That was my guy in that draft in 2019. That was my guy. Drew Lock was my guy. I still think he's talented and can play in this league, but they've given him talent in Denver. It didn't help that his number 1 wide receiver went down. He never really got a chance to play with him. But they've surrounded him with talent. If he can't do it this year, he's probably not going to be able to do it in Denver. Maybe he's able to do it somewhere else, but he won't be able to do it in Denver. They're going to give up on him if he can't do it this upcoming season. They got all the talent you can ask for. They could just stay healthy. All kinds of tight ends, all kinds of wide receivers, all kinds of running backs. The offensive line is hit or miss, but they have to be able to get something out of him. But that was my guy, so you're right. At some point, I'm going to emerge with, hey, that's my guy. Got another super chat. This one is from Joseph's Book Review. Thank you for the super chat, Joseph's Book Review, who writes, do you think Harrison Smith could play on the Washington football team? I mean, why not? But Harrison Smith is getting up there in age. I still think he would command some good money. And I don't see Washington investing in the safety position again. Again, with them already having a lot of money tied up into the strong safety position, even though they don't like to call it strong or free. They like to rock and roll their safeties and have them be interchangeable. Let's call a spade a spade. Landon Collins is a strong safety. And they're paying him quite a bit. I don't think they're looking to invest even more into the secondary. They've already spent on Kendall Fuller. They're already spending on Landon Collins. They're probably going to have to spend on the cornerback position more likely than not, whether it's bringing back Ronald Darby or signing someone else. I just don't know if they want to spend more money at the safety position. I think they like what they got out of Cameron Curl. I really was impressed with both DeShazer Everett and I forgot my man's name that backed up DeShazer Everett when he was out of the lineup. I think they feel good about what they have at safety. Could they, if an elite young safety came along, would they, pull the trigger? Absolutely. I don't think they would hesitate. But if you're talking about spending money at the safety position, I just don't see them doing it. I don't see them doing that. So, anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for today's show. Kind of going to bypass garbage time because Jeremy Reeves, thank you, Mike Barrett. Jeremy Reeves is the guy that played really well. So I don't think they're looking to do anything at the safety position in particular. But I could be wrong. But I just don't see them doing that. I told you already in Carolina with Rivera and even to a lesser degree with Marty Herney, they never actually aggressively attacked the safety position. They just put a bunch of Band-Aids on it. I think that's one of their philosophies. Like, we don't need to overspend at the safety position. We can find a guy. And they did. They found Cameron Curl in the 7th round. They probably feel like we can find a guy. So I don't see them doing that at all. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Thank you guys for joining me on today's pod. Look forward to chopping it up with you on Friday. If anything else comes up between now and then, we'll have something to talk about. But, I can make some shit up. We got a bunch of topics that I've been pushing off until the offseason to talk about. And so we can have that long-awaited Matthew Stafford discussion. I was at the barbershop chopping it up with my barber. He's a Rams fan. He doesn't like the trade at all. He thinks that they didn't do much in terms of upgrading. And I tried to explain to him, and he said, look, Matthew Stafford's a loser. What do you say to that? What do you say to that? I've got plenty to say to that. So we can have that discussion on Friday. If nothing else comes up, we always got that in our back pocket, among other things. So look forward to chopping it up with you on Friday. If you haven't already done so, looking forward to chopping it up with you guys in the future. And in order to do that, I need you to subscribe to the LouieTeeNetwork for more great content. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. You don't know when this podcast is going to be up and running. Hell, I don't even know when it's up and running half the damn time. So just turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit the like button. 112 of you out there, only 55 likes. Let's try and get this thing up to around 70, at least 70 before it's all said and done. I'd like to get it to 100, honestly. But if I could, 70 is a nice round number. I'd appreciate that greatly. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. Maybe we'll get snow. Maybe we won't get snow. Either way, I'll be live for Washington Football Report tomorrow night. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again on Friday for the Louie T Network podcast. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys, have a good one. Take care. Stay safe. See you on Friday.
Louie